the 7-day method for postpartum, how to reorganize your body, mind, and home without guilt or perfection. In the next few minutes, you're going to receive a complete, practical, and scientifically grounded method that guides you through the first 7 days of realignment after childbirth. A method designed to calm your nervous system, restore your clarity, reduce emotional overload, and reorganize your environment in a way that supports you instead of draining you. If you skip this video, you risk staying trapped in the belief that exhaustion is normal, that losing yourself is inevitable, and that your home will never feel balanced again. Postpartum is not just a physical phase. It's a neurological transition that rewires perception, heightens sensitivity, and intensifies emotional responses. When you don't understand what's happening in your brain, body, and environment, the chaos feels personal, as if it reflects your competence or your worth as a mother. It does not. It reflects adaptation, not failure. And that's exactly why this method exists, to give you back the sense of direction your biology temporarily took away. Unlike traditional postpartum advice that offers scattered tips and unrealistic expectations, what I'm bringing you here is a structural shift. It's a combination of neuroscience, environmental psychology, maternal behavior research, and conscious motherhood. You'll understand why your mind feels scattered, why your body reacts so intensely, and why your home feels out of rhythm. More importantly, you'll learn how to bring everything back into alignment without overdoing, overthinking, or overscheduling yourself. This is not about perfection. Perfection is a trap that tightens the moment you try to escape it. This is about coherence between your internal state, your emotional needs, and the space you inhabit. In 7 days, you can reestablish a baseline of calm and stability that allows your maternal intuition to reemerge with strength. When the nervous system feels supported, the home responds. And when the home responds, your mind stops fighting for survival and starts returning to clarity. Throughout these 7 days, you'll learn how to reduce neural overload, how to create micro zones of recovery, how to neutralize the inner pressure that drains your focus, and how to transform your environment into a quiet regulator of your emotional frequency, all in a sequence that respects your energy, your pace, and your lived reality. This method has already changed the daily lives of many mothers who thought they were failing, when in truth, they were simply misaligned with what their biology needed most. If at any moment you feel a sense of recognition in what you hear, allow that recognition to settle. It means your system is ready to reorganize from the inside out. And that is the real beginning of postpartum recovery. 1. Why postpartum feels so disorienting. Postpartum disorientation is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The maternal brain enters a phase of hyperadaptation so intense that your perception, judgment, emotional processing, and sensory filters all shift at once. Studies from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child show that during the first weeks after birth, the mother's neural networks reorganize to prioritize survival, vigilance, and attunement to the baby. This means your attention becomes more fragmented, your emotional responses become faster, and your tolerance for stimulus drops significantly. You are not less focused or less efficient. You are biologically redirected. UCLA research on maternal neuroplasticity reveals that the parts of the brain responsible for detecting subtle cues, micro sounds, micro movements, changes in temperature or breathing, grow more active and more sensitive after birth. This explains why small noises feel amplified, why clutter feels overwhelming, why decision-making becomes heavier, and why your mind feels overstimulated even when nothing dramatic is happening. You are processing more than before because your brain is scanning for patterns of safety every second. When this neurological rewiring happens, physical organization becomes harder, not because you are disorganized, but because your cognitive resources are allocated elsewhere. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, prioritizing, and task management, temporarily loses dominance. Meanwhile, the limbic system and the brainstem become more active to support instinct, bonding, and emotional responsiveness. This is why thoughts feel scattered and why routines that once were simple now feel monumental. There is also the invisible layer of emotional resonance. Maternal sensitivity increases by design. Your brain is trying to synchronize with your baby's rhythms, breathing patterns, and emotional cues. This resonance creates a constant open channel between mother and child, which is beautiful, but also draining when the environment lacks structure. Without a supportive environment, this constant neuro-emotional connection leaves you exposed, absorbing more stimulus than your energy can process. Another factor behind the disorientation is the abrupt shift in sensory thresholds. The visual clutter that you once filtered out without effort now feels like noise. Research by environmental psychologist Richard Kohler demonstrates that visual overstimulation increases cortisol, even when nothing stressful is happening. This means your home can raise your stress levels without saying a word. Light, color, texture, layout, all of it communicates with your body before it reaches your mind. You may also experience the feeling of not recognizing yourself. This is not a psychological collapse. This is a temporary state of neurobiological transition. Your identity networks, the neural circuits that hold your sense of who you are, soften during postpartum as new roles, emotional perspectives, and sensory priorities settle in. It's a dissolution that precedes reconstruction. Nothing is disappearing. Everything is reorganizing. Understanding this changes everything. When you realize that what feels like chaos is actually adaptation, shame loses its power. You stop interpreting your reactions as failure and start seeing them as information. Your nervous system is signaling where support is missing. And once you understand the mechanism, clarity begins to return. 2. The 3 levels of overload. There is a pattern behind everything you've been feeling in postpartum. It isn't random, and it isn't a personal flaw. It follows 3 predictable layers of overload that appear together, feed one another, and silently drain your energy until you no longer know where to begin. Once you understand these levels, the confusion dissolves. You finally see the architecture behind the chaos. And when you can see the structure, you can reorganize it. The first level is neural overload. This is when your nervous system is receiving more information than it can filter. Not because you're weak, but because your sensory thresholds are lower after birth. A study from the Max Planck Institute shows that mothers process microstimuli at twice the intensity of non-mothers, especially sounds and sudden changes in the environment. This hyper-processing raises alertness, makes the brain operate in a state of continuous scanning, and reduces your tolerance for unpredictability. That's why a simple drop of an object, a misaligned room, or a sudden interruption feels heavier than it logically should. Your brain is in high-definition mode. The second level is emotional overload. This is the layer that most women misinterpret as "I'm too sensitive" or "I'm not controlling myself." But emotional overload is a natural consequence of neural overload. When the brain is overstimulated, emotions become louder because the limbic system takes the lead. You are not losing emotional intelligence. you are temporarily running on instinct. This creates ambivalence, a very real and very normal experience where love and exhaustion exist at the same time. Research published in the Journal of Affective Disorders shows that maternal ambivalence increases when the environment lacks predictability and when the mother receives too many micro-demands in a short period. It is not moodiness, it is biology under pressure. The third level is environmental overload. This is where everything you feel internally becomes amplified by the space around you. A cluttered surface, excessive objects, harsh lighting, or unpredictable layout can transform a mildly stressful moment into a complete shutdown. The environment speaks to the nervous system faster than thoughts do. Environmental psychology has proven that the visual field directly influences heart rate variability, cortisol release, and emotional regulation. If your home feels too much, your system enters survival mode without asking permission. When these three levels combine, something powerful happens. The mother starts believing the fatigue is her identity, not her condition. She starts believing she isn't capable, when in reality, her internal architecture is overloaded at 3 simultaneous points. And here is the most important truth. None of these levels represent who you are. They represent what your system is carrying. Seeing these layers with clarity is the first step in reducing their weight. Because when you finally recognize that this overload is structural, not personal, the pressure softens. You understand that the problem isn't in you, it's in the layers that need to be recalibrated. And once these layers begin to fall back into place, energy returns, clarity returns, and the feeling of myself begins to reemerge in ways you didn't expect.
3. Day 1. Resetting the noise. Day 1 is not about organizing the house. It is about reorganizing the field you occupy. Before you touch a drawer or fold a blanket, you need to recalibrate the system that interprets the world around you. When the nervous system is overloaded, no method works. When the nervous system is regulated, even the simplest action becomes effective. This is why the first day is dedicated to resetting the noise, internal and external, so your mind can finally breathe. The most powerful starting point is regulating your physiology. Heart coherence breathing, validated by the HeartMath Institute, is one of the fastest ways to shift your system out of survival mode. The technique increases vagal tone, lowers heart rate variability, and creates a rhythm that stabilizes emotional reactivity. 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. 3 minutes of this pattern sends a signal to your brain. It is safe to re-enter clarity. This is not meditation. It is physiological alignment, and it directly reduces the postpartum sense of chaos. After regulating the breath, the next step is reducing visual input. Visual overload is one of the biggest triggers for postpartum anxiety. Research by environmental psychologist Rickard Kuhler demonstrates that even mild visual clutter can increase cortisol levels. The human nervous system responds to visual information faster than it responds to language. That means your home speaks before your mind interprets. So on day 1, your goal is not to tidy everything, but to quiet the surfaces. Clear 1 counter, 1 table, 1 visual line. When your eyes rest, your brain rests. Then comes the 12-minute recalibration rule. This rule is simple but transformative. You dedicate 12 uninterrupted minutes to a single action that reduces sensory or emotional weight. It doesn't matter if the action is small. What matters is that it is singular. Neuroscience shows that single task engagement increases dopamine availability and decreases cognitive load. In practice, this might look like wiping 1 surface, folding 1 pile, or adjusting 1 corner of a room. 12 minutes of focused action gives the brain a sense of completion, which postpartum often takes away. There is also a mental component to resetting the noise. On the first day, the goal is not positive thinking. It is accurate thinking. Replace the thought, "I can't handle this," with the statement, "My system is overstimulated and I'm recalibrating." Harvard psychology studies on cognitive reframing show that naming the state reduces its intensity. It gives you distance without denial. It empowers instead of suppressing. This shift alone can bring more calm than hours of forced optimism. Day 1 is the foundation. It is where chaos begins to lose its authority and where your internal landscape starts to feel more spacious. Once the noise drops, even slightly, the path forward becomes clearer. Your physiology softens, your mind becomes more available, and your environment starts to feel like something you can shape again, instead of something that is shaping you. 4. Days 2 and 3, the recovery zones. Days 2 and 3 are where your environment begins to participate in your healing. At this stage, your system is more receptive, your sensory field is less saturated, and your capacity to perceive what drains you becomes sharper. This is when you introduce the recovery zones, a structure that transforms your home into a supportive ecosystem instead of a constant source of microstress. These zones are not aesthetic decisions. They are neurological tools designed to reduce cognitive load and restore your energy. The first zone is the maternal rest zone. This is the space where your nervous system can drop its vigilance, even briefly. Light becomes crucial here. Studies from the University of Toronto show that softer lighting reduces limbic activation, making emotional states easier to regulate. Choose a corner with indirect light or a lamp that diffuses rather than exposes. Add one tactile element that brings comfort: a soft blanket, a textured cushion, because tactile stimuli directly influence the parasympathetic response. This zone is not about comfort in a decorative sense. It is about creating an immediate shift in internal state. The second zone is the baby care zone. This is where predictability becomes your strongest ally. Babies thrive on repetitive sensory patterns, and the maternal brain responds to predictable rhythms with decreased stress markers. Arrange items in a way that reduces micro-decisions. Harvard research on decision fatigue shows that unnecessary choices drain more energy than actual physical tasks. In practical terms, this might mean keeping only essential items visible, storing the rest in clear categories, and giving each object a fixed place. The goal is not perfection. The goal is predictability, because predictability is regulation. The third zone is the rapid restoration zone.
This is the space mothers rarely think to create, yet it becomes the most transformative. It is a small area, sometimes just a chair, a bathroom corner, or a balcony spot, where you can experience a 90-second emotional reset. Neuroscience shows it takes about 60 to 90 seconds for an emotional wave to complete its cycle when you are not amplifying it with thoughts. The environment you place yourself in during those seconds determines whether the wave dissolves or intensifies. A neutral space, free of triggers and free of tasks, acts as a reset button for your system. These zones work because they distribute the weight that your brain has been carrying alone. They take part of the responsibility of regulation away from your mind and give it to the environment. When your home becomes a co-regulator, your mental clarity increases, your emotional resilience strengthens, and your physical energy stops leaking into places it doesn't need to go. Mothers who adopt these zones often describe a sense of relief that arrives before any major change takes place. The shift comes from the simple fact that the environment finally stops competing with their nervous system. Days 2 and 3 are about reclaiming agency through structure. When the home is divided with intention, the mother's mind stops scanning everything at once. Attention becomes more focused, rest becomes more accessible, and the postpartum fog begins to lift not through effort, but through alignment. 5. Days 4 and 5, recalibrating the mind. Days 4 and 5 are dedicated to the part of postpartum that most people misunderstand, the mental landscape. This is where your thoughts, interpretations, and internal narratives either support your recovery or quietly sabotage it. The goal here is not to force positivity or pretend everything is fine. The goal is to recalibrate your mind so it stops amplifying what your nervous system is already trying to process. When the mind aligns with biology, the emotional weight decreases. When it contradicts it, everything feels heavier than it is. The first step is identifying the 3 thought patterns that drain the most energy during postpartum. The first is catastrophic interpretation, the automatic belief that discomfort equals danger. Studies from Stanford's Department of Psychology show that high-alert nervous systems interpret neutral events as threatening when under hormonal transition. This means the thought, "I will never feel normal again," is not a truth. It is a cortisol-driven interpretation. Naming it removes its authority. Your brain stops treating imagination as reality. The second pattern is performance identity, the belief that motherhood must be executed flawlessly to be valid. This pattern creates an internal tension so strong that your system enters a constant state of evaluation, not presence. Research published in the Journal of Family Psychology show that mothers who internalize performance expectations experience higher rates of emotional depletion, regardless of their actual workload. The mind becomes the source of exhaustion. Recalibration begins when you shift from "how well am I doing this" to "what does my system need right now?" The first question judges. The second one regulates. The third training pattern is self-blame looping. This happens when the brain, in search of control, turns discomfort into personal fault. Yet neuroscientists from King's College London have shown that self-blame increases stress markers while reducing problem-solving capacity. In other words, self-blame makes recovery slower. The antidote is the neutral description technique used in cognitive reframing studies at Harvard. Instead of "I'm failing," the mind states, "I'm overstimulated and adjusting." Neutrality interrupts the cycle without forcing you into false optimism. It brings the mind back to accuracy. The next step is anticipating the emotional state you want to feel, a practice supported by both neuroscience and spiritual principles. Neville Goddard described this as entering the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Modern neuroscience describes it as anticipatory regulation. When you allow yourself to feel even a small version of calm, clarity, or order before they fully arrive, your brain begins to reorganize its neural pathways toward that state. Anticipation is not imagination. It is neurological rehearsal. The postpartum brain responds exceptionally well to this because its plasticity is heightened. The final layer of recalibration is dismantling the belief that you must handle everything. This belief activates the threat response in the brain. You don't gain more capacity by demanding more of yourself. You gain capacity by removing internal pressure. When the mind stops acting as an internal critic, the nervous system stops preparing for danger. That alone restores mental clarity, emotional fluidity, and a sense of presence that postpartum mothers often miss without realizing why.
Days 4 and 5 bring the mind back to coherence. Thought by thought, pressure dissolves, weight lifts, and you begin to understand that your mental patterns were not the enemy. They were signals of a system needing alignment. Days 6 and 7, the environment that heals. Days 6 and 7 are where everything you've been recalibrating internally begins to anchor itself externally.
Your environment becomes a stabilizing force instead of an unpredictable one. This is the moment when the house stops reflecting your overwhelm and starts supporting the mother you're becoming. In postpartum, the environment is not decoration. It is physiology. It is psychology. It is emotional regulation made visible. When the space is aligned with your needs, your system stops fighting the world and starts flowing with it. The first principle is the power of low stimulation color. Research from environmental design studies at the University of British Columbia shows that soft, desaturated tones, beiges, off-whites, muted greens, lower emotional reactivity by reducing visual contrast in the field of vision. This means your walls, textiles, and visible surfaces are speaking directly to your nervous system. Strong colors demand attention. Gentle colors give attention back to you. On days 6 and 7, you identify the visual hotspots, places where your eyes feel pulled, and soften them. This alone can lower your internal tension. The second principle is texture as a regulator. The limbic system responds immediately to tactile signals. Natural textures like cotton, wood, and wool have been shown to reduce sympathetic arousal by sending familiar, grounded sensory information to the body. When a space contains materials that feel organic, the system interprets it as safe. This is why an environment full of synthetic, shiny, or cold surfaces feels emotionally loud. On these days, you introduce or reorganize tactile elements intentionally, not for aesthetics, but for neurological comfort. The third principle is surface management. The brain processes visual information before conscious thought, and research in environmental psychology confirms that the amount of visible objects in a room directly correlates with the cognitive load the brain carries. When too many objects compete for attention, the prefrontal cortex becomes fatigued faster. Reducing exposed surfaces is not minimalism. It is emotional hygiene. Days 6 and 7 are about removing unnecessary visual noise so your nervous system can rest without effort. The fourth principle is the maternal flow path. This concept comes from the intersection of neuroscience and spatial design. It refers to the ease with which you move through your home while performing repetitive tasks. When your movement requires constant detours, bending, searching, or navigating obstacles, your body interprets the experience as micro-threats. This contributes to chronic tension, especially in the shoulders, chest, and jaw regions directly tied to emotional processing. By reorganizing the furniture layout, pathways, and frequently accessed items, you create a flow that reduces somatic stress. Your body stops bracing itself. It starts breathing again. The final principle is energetic coherence. You don't need mysticism for this, you only need awareness. Every room has an emotional frequency shaped by light, rhythm, noise, and arrangement. The maternal nervous system is especially receptive to these cues. When a room holds coherence, soft light, predictable layout, balanced surfaces, your internal state mirrors it. When a room is chaotic, your internal state tries to compensate. Days 6 and 7 are your opportunity to assign every key area of your home a purpose that supports you, not drains you. By the end of these 2 days, you begin to feel a shift that doesn't come from effort, it comes from alignment. The home becomes a co-regulator. The space becomes a partner. And you realize that healing wasn't something you needed to force, it was something your environment could help you receive. 7. The insight moment, where the content earns its value. There is a moment in every postpartum recovery where something clicks. It isn't dramatic, it isn't loud, it's subtle, like a door opening inside your mind. This is the moment when you realized
The chaos was never a reflection of your capability. It was a reflection of your overload. And overload can be reorganized. This insight is the turning point, the moment the weight lifts, not because the circumstances changed, but because the meaning changed. When you understand the architecture behind your exhaustion, you stop fighting yourself. You start working with your biology instead of against it. By now, you've seen a pattern forming. The disorientation wasn't personal failure. Neural overload, emotional overload, environmental overload. Each layer was signaling the same truth. Your system was carrying more than it was designed to filter at once. And the moment you recognize this, your nervous system softens. You stop interpreting your reactions as character flaws and begin seeing them as adaptive responses. The shame dissolves. Clarity returns. The postpartum fog doesn't lift because life got easier, but because your internal compass finally points to the right direction. You've also seen how simple shifts can create disproportionate relief. A single line of clear sight on a counter. A breath that regulates heart rhythm. A predictable space for baby care. A corner that calms your senses. A reframed thought that stops a panic spiral. These are not small changes. They are the foundations of a new internal structure, one that makes you more resilient, more grounded, and more present. When mothers experience this in real life, they often say the same sentence. I thought I was losing myself, but I was actually recalibrating. That's the moment the reconstruction begins. This video has already given you something essential, a map. Not a list of tasks, not a performance standard, a map of how your mind, body, and environment communicate. A map of how to restore yourself in a rhythm that respects your energy and your reality. A map that shows you what is yours to carry and what belongs to the space around you. And once you see the map, nothing feels as chaotic as before. You know where you are, you know what needs attention, you know what can wait. If this content brought you even one moment of recognition, one moment of relief, one moment where your breath became easier, then this video has already fulfilled its purpose. That moment of insight is the beginning of your 7-day realignment. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not failing. You are rebuilding the architecture of your internal world. If you're ready to anchor this transformation, write in the comments, I return to myself in 7 days. 8. Ending with a soft CTA without breaking the experience. As you arrive at the end of this journey, notice how different your internal landscape feels compared to when you started. Not because everything around you changed in 1 week, but because now you see the architecture behind your experience. You understand the signals your body was sending, the mechanisms your mind was trying to manage, and the way your environment was influencing everything without your awareness. This clarity alone already begins reshaping the postpartum experience from the inside out. You've just gone through a method that integrates neuroscience, emotional regulation, environmental design, and conscious motherhood into a single path of realignment. You didn't just learn what happens in postpartum, you learned how to reorganize yourself in a way that respects biology and reduces the unnecessary suffering that so many women silently carry. You now have the structure, the tools, and the awareness to continue this process with intention. And the more you apply these principles, the lighter your days become because you're no longer functioning in opposition to yourself. Before you go, I want to leave you with something important. Postpartum transformation is not about achievement, it's about coherence. It's about bringing your nervous system, your emotions, and your environment in the same direction, so your energy stops leaking in the places it doesn't need to go. When coherence forms, even the challenges feel different. They feel manageable, they feel human, and you feel like yourself again.
Not the version before the baby, but the version that is expanding now. If this video supported you, the next step is choosing to stay in this rhythm of reconstruction. There is another video here that deepens this journey and helps you continue strengthening your mind, your emotional presence, and your home. Watch it next so the momentum you created today doesn't dissipate. Every layer you align brings you closer to a postpartum experience that feels grounded, intentional, and calm. If you feel called to go deeper, there's also a guide designed for supporting mothers who want a more structured approach, a path that includes environment planning, sensory regulation, maternal mindset, and step-by-step organization strategies. You'll find it below. Explore it only if it resonates with where you are right now. This is not about pressure. It's about offering tools to support your awakening into a more confident, conscious, and regulated motherhood. Thank you for staying until the end. It means you chose yourself. You chose clarity over confusion, alignment over overload, and gentleness over perfection. Your 7-day reconstruction starts now, and your home, your mind, and your body are ready to meet the mother you are becoming.